looking at?
The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the place for amazing pin collectibles with over 300 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month. Stay tuned for a special discount code good on your next order at fansets.com just for Discovering Trek listeners. Fansets, our pins have character.
Kasey and Sara here, and this is Discovering Trek Enterprise. Welcome to the First Frontier. The two of us are mind melding another episode of Enterprise. This is the first series watch through for me, and it's a rewatch for Kasey. Today we are processing the episode Fusion. This episode traveled over the airwaves into your TV about 20 years ago on February 27th, 2002. If you haven't watched this episode yet and you don't want to be spoiled, go fire up Paramount Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, wherever you gotta go. Watch the episode, come back here, post haste, and join us chatting about Fusion. That's it. We hope you have enjoyed our non-warning spoiler warning.
Right on, let's get into it. But before we get into Fusion, we want to remind you that we want to hear from our listeners about everything Enterprise. So, how can you get in touch with us to talk about Enterprise? Sara, do you have ideas?
That's ridiculous. There are a bunch of ways listeners can do that. Of course, you can go to trekgeeks.com/contact and leave an email to get us your thoughts. On Twitter or Facebook, all you got to do is search for Discovering Trek and leave us a message there too. Or you can leave us a voicemail by visiting our website at trekgeeks.com and click on that big blue button. But remember, any comments you leave might be used in a future episode of Discovering Trek. How many voicemails do you think we get? I have no idea. I'd really like to hear some. So I think people should kind of get in on that because it'd be fun to add to some of these recordings.
It'd be nice to hear some voices. Clean, people put that to, people's names.
Yeah.
They could keep it clean. They don't have to.
Yeah.
We can always bleep them.
Yeah.
Talking about bleeps.
Do you have a better rhyme? Message us and give us your rhyme.
Oh. Maybe we should do a contest for season 2 that listeners give us their
rhyming recaps.
Yes.
I think we might be something.
See, I can read, just barely, but I can read much better than I can rhyme. So all y'all, you might be co-starring here. That would be wonderful.
Bring it on. All right. Pie.
Pie.
Should we be talking about pie? I know you're hungry.
We can.
Okay.
I'm muting myself and devouring other food as we talk. But
there we go.
So, Sara,
I gave this 4 slices of a slightly 2-day-old strawberry rhubarb pie.
I gotcha.
That's literally what's in my fridge right now. Is a strawberry rhubarb pie that's it's been there for about 2 days. It'll still be good. But we ran out of ice cream, so it's going to kind of be like I'm just eating it to eat it.
Should you eat it within the next couple of days?
I'll eat it later today.
Smart. I like that idea. Right on. I give this just barely 4 slices of pie, and this to me is like my grandmother's mincemeat pie that when visiting you kind of had to eat, and she seemed to put raisins in everything. I never understood why Nana did that, but it was just like, real Jell-O? Raisins. Steak? Raisins. Mashed potatoes? No, but other things.
Coffee, raisins.
Right? So maybe she just, I don't know, enjoyed them far too much. Okay, well, since we're both kind of on this episode, what will lift everything up is once again, ladies and gentlemen, you getting to listen to a wonderful Sara lyrical masterpiece.
Okay. Let's see how this goes because I haven't read it back in a couple days, so I don't know if my iambic pentameter is going to be on point, but I'll do my best. Archer shares an old book he got when just 8. Admiral Johnny Archer was his hope and his fate. A ship is now hailing, Vulcan language it speaks. It's a very old vessel with some cracks and some creaks. They seem a bit different, kind of off just a tad. The main guy is played by Captain Kirk's dad. They come aboard Enterprise to visit and eat. I'll try some of that chicken. I don't care that it's meat. It seems they are trying to live different ways by controlling emotions and enjoying their days. They believe that their way is as safe as can be, but T'Pol thinks it different and it's wary, they see. Trip makes a new friend. His misconceptions are whack about mating and the slaughter of that poor quarterback. Everyone seems to get along, and T'Pol learns a lot, but the Vulcan who stalks her, controlled he is not. He says she has humor and can sense what she feels. So much time with the humans has her spinning her wheels. He says not to meditate to see how she'll sleep. Chaotic jazz, making out, it sure seems to cut deep. The Admiral calls, and a story he's fed. The crewmen they've met's father's near dead. T'Pol is assaulted and rushes to flocks. When the bad guy tries to leave Archer's door, he does block. His anger is brutal. The guy is a skis. So Archer tells him it's beyond time to leave. T'Pol is now meditating. The candles are lit. With respect, Archer tells her, now I get it. That's the episode. Not a bad one at all. But naturally, again, it was starring T'Pol.
There you go. Amazing. Spectacular rhyming. Woo! I tell you.
It was something. It was an episode. I feel as though there's probably lots to be said about it, and that means we should maybe just, as I say on Rewind, pop and lock our way into the next segment of our show, which we like to call Transporter Thoughts.
I hear you. I think so.
Yeah.
Wow. Right off the bat, we get another example of Archer's instincts stink so far. It's just flat out.
Oh, yeah.
And he doesn't know what he doesn't know. There's just this cockiness, and he has no accomplishments whatsoever in dealing with Vulcans or really knowing anything going on. And he behaves completely as if he does. And then blows off T'Pol completely. Doesn't listen to a word she's saying. Right off the bat on this episode, that irked me. Of again, really? Okay.
Yeah, this is a great episode where it showcases the subtleties of toxic masculinity that people and women deal with in workplace scenarios, where you are a subject matter expert, you are good with your instincts, women's intuition, or whatever you want to call it, and you are met with deaf ears or brushed aside, not trusted for your ideas on it. And this is a very classic example of that. T'Pol is a Vulcan. Therefore, she is a subject matter expert, I believe, on Vulcans, at least more than he is. And he forgets that very much and is just absolutely dazzled and enamored by these creepos, some more than others, obviously, with the creep factor. But yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that if I wrote this episode, first of all, I would never have written this episode, but if I, for some reason, was told, like, you have 5 minutes, fix one thing, I would have been, this is the episode where she loses her composure and lashes out at Archer, not the creepos, but like somebody else being like, listen to me, crying out loud. Why am I here? If you're not going to take anything I say with seriously. But
100%. This I just keep going back to, who's writing this, who's producing this, and who's in charge. Do you have women high up in the chain on this series? And no, there isn't.
And and it's becoming even more, like, it's funny because as we spoke earlier with the Patreon stuff, or even before that, just how you've this one jacked you up a lot. And I made the comment of like, I'm used to seeing this, so I'm a little bit more numb to these types of storylines. And that's very unfortunate, but you mentioning that has made me like look back on some of the episodes reviewed and then looking ahead at episodes that I've recently watched. Yeah, this is such the two white guys writing a show and just tossing the female characters into really crappy situations, much like they did to Troy. In a lot of TNG episodes, she's always the victim and she's victimized. And I'm frankly sick and tired of male writers thinking that a woman needs to be victimized or raped in order to have her grow emotionally in any way in a story. It seems to be a theme you see a lot in TV shows, whether it's Game of Thrones or other things, that you can't grow and become stronger unless you survive something horrible. And it's just not true.
I hear you. This episode pissed me off in a lot of ways.
It makes me think of the writers like hanging around like a freaking episode of Mad Men. And they're just like, they got a glass of whiskey, they got cigarettes. They're like, get the secretary in here to bring me another notepad. I got a great idea for T'Pol. And I'm just like, burf. I have this image of the writer. Yeah. And that's mean and it's horrible to say because there's probably some really good ones in there that didn't have a chance to speak up or whatever the case may be. But you know what I mean? It's just
could be, but I concur with you. This episode it's completely rapey. It's, hey, damsel in distress. Someone else is going to have to rescue her. It's played dramatically, but like, hey, when Trip has non-consensual sex, it's played as a comedy. So let's just, ha 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 with him. And on this one, it's just very disappointing.
It's very disappointing. And we just came off of reviewing the episode 2 where Malcolm thinks he's dying and they put the T'Pol in through that thing. And that was so badly done.
They keep doing it. They keep doing this thread.
And they do it again in an upcoming episode, which I don't want to be a spoiler alert, but I gave an episode, I think I was going to give it my first ever 6 out of 6, but now that I'm thinking about it, I might dock off one because of the same thing popping up. I'll have to debate about that and we'll have a good conversation about that episode when we get to it, but enough.
Right? And in this episode, Sarah, like once again, an antagonist does something really nasty. Okay, so before we had First Officer Ryan on the Fortunate try and kill everybody, and now we have this with rapey Vulcan guy, and Archer does nothing. The standing up of him for his crew is get off my ship, and that's it.
Yeah,
I was like, if I'm a crew member with this going on, I start to have issues trusting that my captain is looking out for me the best way possible.
Yeah. Can you remind me what you're referring to with Trip's non-consensual sex being played as a comedy?
When he goes over to the other ship and they have like the food wall and they
he gets pregnant. Yeah.
And he gets pregnant. And it's there's just very much this
comedy aspect of it, because because that could have been really, they could have really dived into that as him being a victim because he was, and his body was changed and violated in a way he didn't want, and had it happen to a female character, it would have been definitely. I hate that kind of what's the word I'm looking for, when they laugh off the things that happen to men. If there's one joke I hate is the don't drop the soap. I don't care what you're in prison for. Nobody deserves to be raped, and I don't like that. That's a string, because that makes it hard for male victims to ever feel that they could come forward and be taken seriously. And so this is just a minor version of that, right? Like,
yeah, very, very odd storytelling decisions.
It's a sign of the times. The times have changed a little bit. You see some writers working hard to change the conversation. And obviously some don't. Movies still come out that are problematic, and people are learning, but at least we can talk about this now. And
True.
you know.
True. So what do you think about this? Like when this episode came out, I mean, we're learning in this episode that the mind meld is an ancient thing that hasn't been done a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah.
And that's not explored at all. Not like, hey, we tried this mind meld and let's say it doesn't work properly. And there's real physical, emotional, psychological ramifications that have an effect onto Paul, where it's like, okay, and has an effect on Solaris trying to mind meld, so that there's male and female victims here of something where we go, our ancestors have tried to balance emotion and logic and haven't been able to do it. And even though y'all have been on the ship for, I think it was about 8 years or so, doesn't mean that it'll work or it'll work for everyone. And then you have a different storyline. And that's what I go, well, then you can just drop this whole damsel in distress BS type thing and have something deeper.
I totally feel like that group of Vulcans that were experimenting with this lifestyle would have been way more believable if for 8 years they were living amongst society and being successful. Mm-hmm. It's no different than going to like a fat camp or something. Like, yeah, I'm losing tons of weight because chef is making me eat healthy every single day and I'm being taken to a gym every single day. But you get out into the real world where you have to grocery shop and balance your own life and job. A lot of people have a hard time keeping up with these really good things. So these people living by themselves, yeah, sure, of course they're finding success in this because it's just them. But get them into society. Are they actually able to function in a way that's appropriate and balanced? And obviously not.
Mm-hmm. And then how successful are each one of these Vulcans on the ship? The captain, I mean, we get a couple of scenes with him and then he disappears from the episode.
Yeah.
And he's just gone. And then, stuff with Kov and Trip. Kov seems to be really, I mean, making a connection with Trip. They
I like Kov.
Right? They talk with each other. They're open about the misconceptions about both humans and Vulcans. There's a back and forth between them that is really open and inquisitive. Like there's questions, not instead of you should do this, which is, Solaris telling to Paul. It's like, no, you should do this. Kov is checking in with Trip, and both of them, it just is question after question after question, which goes, okay, there's this, a sense of wonder there and inquisitiveness.
Yeah. Had they paired up to Paul and Kov in this episode, it would have been great. Because I think that he would have been a little bit more like, okay, I get it. I'm sensing the tone. You're not interested, but, hear me out. Like, it was just not creepy and not pressure.
Yeah. And that's where I kept going, where, finding people in the world that ask questions as opposed to make statements.
Yeah.
They're usually more open to really wanting to find out what's going on. How people are different, how some of us are the same, but what things can we do and not do and change? Just storytelling wise, the captain of that ship not being seen at the end, I was kind of just flabbergasted on that, because then I go, did Archer tell that other captain at all that one of his crew is a rapey person and that has not at all got anything under control, and now you're stuck with this person on that ship?
Yeah, and considering the badass actor they got to play the role, you would have hoped to have seen a bit more of Mr. Pine.
Right. It's like, okay, he's off duty from chips. He comes in, they put some, I found his makeup, I thought, was horrendous. In the scene where they're eating, it's like, oh, let's see where the gray-green line ends of the makeup and the ears are. It's like, blend everything more. Come on. You know what doesn't need to be blended?
What?
my love for fan sets.
Oh, tell me more.
I will. Well, Sara and Discovering Trek listeners, we want to thank our friends over at Fansets for being the exclusive sponsor on Discovering Trek. The Fansets crew are constantly working to put out the best product available and to come up with new designs and product releases. There are more wonderful new products out right this very moment. There's, of course, all the character pins, the Trek emoji pins, pins from all the Trek series, Delta pins in full size and minis, heck, Picard pins, and, of course, a lot of really cool non-Trek stuff like Scooby-Doo, Zenoscope, Harry Potter character pins, and The Big Bang Theory.
No way.
Way. There are hundreds of pins and accessories free at fansets.com. So right after listening to us, go on over to fansets.com, scroll along all the amazing pins that are offered, load up your cart, and enter the special code word Discovering Trek in all caps, no spaces, please, at checkout for an amazing 10% off your entire order. And don't forget, if you are in the U.S. and spend more than $30, you'll also get free shipping.
Fansets. Our pins have character. And we thank our friends at Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Nice.
Nailed it.
Nice. You did nail it. Well, since I'm starving to death because I haven't eaten for 17 hours.
You're making me hungry.
I'm begging Chef to have some nice aroma wafting through the layers of the Enterprise NX-01.
Well, I think also we can probably make our chef special of the day a quick conversation so that you can eat, because also it seems like I think the more that we talk about this episode, the more we're getting mad about it, and we're going to start changing our slices of pie because it is a problematic episode, and it's got me thinking about episodes to come that we're going to talk about. And now I'm all like, oh man, I gotta turn off that. I also watched the newest episode of Handmaid's Tale this morning, so naturally I'm jacked up on behalf of women everywhere, just in general from that show. And then I watched an episode of Law and Order Special Victims Unit, so it's just like I'm ready to put some streaks on my cheeks and get my weapons and just get out there and start wreaking havoc and protecting people left, right, and center. But TV, man.
Right on.
I need to watch some Disney today, I think, to balance out.
On this, you need some Paw Patrol. As Grandpa, I have seen a lot of Paw Patrol. It's like, okay, animated dogs, what's not to like?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So on this, hey, we kind of find out that Paul has a little bit of a rebellious streak.
Yeah.
I liked seeing that and hearing about that. And for me, and I don't know if it's for you as well, but it starts explaining a little bit more of how she's able to be successful staying on a human ship when other Vulcans, can't do a 10-day tour without saying, I want the hell out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And that she doesn't just strictly follow the rules. Hearing about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was an extremely cheesy flashback, and I don't know why it felt like it had to be like a 1920s speakeasy that she was like, come on, like, I'm so sick of that being such any flashbacks to anything human. It's always like jazz music and people are doing funner stuff than that sometimes. She should have walked herself into a Hooters or something like that. That would have been pretty funny. Really get a glimpse of humanity. You got your curly fries, you got the poor guy getting sung to by all the waitresses.
Oh my God.
I love Hooters. It cracks me up.
Paul comes back with Hooters gear. Oh my goodness.
Totally.
So I found part of it like with the jazz, that it being like non-logical.
Yeah.
The very dreamy Vaseline lensed look of everything. I was just like, okay, this is we're getting into Sybil Shepherd moonlighting type of
where's Bruce
stuff.
Willis
So everything's diffused way too much. But I like that she's like, hey, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna explore some stuff on my own.
Yeah, it was just cheesy.
Thinking about that, Yeah, well, yeah. It looked like they had a part of the, New York set,
Mm.
background set from somewhere, and a couple of doors, and they said, let's just throw steam up, do it from high angle. It'll look different enough, so we'll know where when they're in dreamland, and that'll be fine. We'll go from there. I was also thinking on this, and we did touch about it before, of wouldn't more communications between civilians of different cultures and different planets be an excellent way to improve relations and or learn about each other instead of it going through, Starfleet, military. Um, I've personally learned a lot from meeting other people and visiting where they are and being civilians and seeing what they do for a living, what goes on with their lives. Sometimes it's like, hey, the job that I do doesn't matter. What it does is it pays for me to be able to spend time with my family and to
Yeah.
be able to do these things that we consider important. And for a civilian Vulcan ship, how about, what I think, were there 8 people on that ship? Maybe. I think that was, it was something, I can't remember. It looked relatively of a large ship, but okay, so we meet 3.
Hmm.
And boy, I would have thought on something like that, Archer would have said, hey, you know what we're gonna do? We can have dinners. It's gonna be 3 or 4 days that you're here. We can have a dinner every night in the mess hall. Your crew can come over, and whoever wants to meet and greet and talk with humans, we can all just sit down and have some discussions. That'd be kind of cool. But who
Yeah,
knows?
it makes me think of that old TNG episode where those aliens came aboard and there was one that was there to learn about pleasurable things and was like eating all the chocolate with Troy. And then there was the one that wanted to know about like security and combat. And they were kind of giving their hosts a bit of giving them the gears, but it was all in the fact of like, we all had a desire to learn different aspects of your life. And so we came aboard and did all those things. And it made for a really good episode and kind of a fun way to approach that type of thing.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And quick last thing in Chef Special of the day. Archer needs to learn. He needs to and listen to people who have much more knowledge than he does. And this whole thinking with my gut thing is BS.
He
Just
needs
go,
to get over himself.
he needs to do that and allow people to share what they know. And maybe he needs to be studying, the Vulcan database a lot more than he is. He keeps going from his little computer to his file cabinet with look at the little file cards and coming back. It's like, hey, if you've got this time, study up, and then you could go to Paul and say, hey, I've been reading about this. Can you tell me more? Or a firsthand experience type stuff. And I think we'd get a better captain, frankly.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't disagree, but I don't know how to word it in the sense that now that I'm further into this first season, and I'm enjoying the fact that part of his behavior is becoming warranted because we are seeing some shady stuff from a lot of the Vulcans, and so I can understand his frustration of like, how am I supposed to do my job when you guys are keeping stuff from us? Like that part I understand, but there's just a better way of doing it too. You know what I mean?
I hear you. Well, gosh, that closes up
That does it.
this episode.
Yeah. See ya episode. Probably won't watch that one ever again.
Nope.
All right. Well, we finished our plates of slop, and that concludes our coverage on this episode, Fusion. We will be back next time to discuss Rogue Planet as we continue to celebrate the 20th anniversary year of Enterprise. God, can you believe it? 20 years. Until then, remember you can subscribe to Discovering Trek by searching for us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or by heading to discoveringtrek.com. You can find us on Twitter at Discovering Trek. I know I'm on there at Rewind, and you can find us too, again, as we said earlier, just do a search on Facebook and you'll get everything you need.
There you go. Well, Y'all who are listening, if you're enjoying what we're doing here on Discovering Trek and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, please consider supporting us on Patreon. As a subscriber, you can get access to the unedited recordings of episodes, as well as exclusive content and great subscriber rewards, like our annual supporters pins from Fansets, our exclusive Trek Geeks Podcast Network t-shirt, and other goodies that might be coming around the pike soon. We'd like to take a moment to recognize the following amazing producers of Discovering Trek. Thank you all for your support. Producers are Mike Bovia, Chaz Bradshaw, Kyle Castillo, Peter Craig, Craig Ewing, Jackie and Chris Hackney, Kimberly Hartman, David Hood, Lionel Mershon, Matt McGonigal, Jim McMahon, Darren Metcalf, Charlie Mulvey, Sean O'Halloran, Jamie Rogers, Chris Trabuzio, Ken Tripp, Christina Werther, and Jess Vashon. The senior producer of Discovering Trek is Jude Tatman.
Yeah, it is. If you would like to become a producer of Discovering Trek or get access to the raw audio for Discovering Trek episodes, head on over to patreon.com/trekgeeks for all the details. Do non-meditating Vulcans dream of electric sheep? Who knows? Until next time, to be mouth.
Music for Discovering Trek is provided by 5 Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Discovering Trek is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.